Now, one thing to note during this pandemic is how unpredictable the employment situation has become. And when you look at it on a week-to-week basis, you see just how much lockdown impacts people's ability to work. For the week ending October 31st, weekly jobless claims rose for the first time in 5 weeks. And here to walk us through what to do if you find yourself in this situation and some of the greater issues in the system, we have Heidi Sherholtz, senior economist at the Economic Policy Institute. Heidi, thank you so much for joining us. First, can you tell us what's available to you if you lose your job? Take us through the programs and just how that progression goes.
Yep, it's a really good question that a lot of people are facing a desperate need for an answer to right now. So I'm glad you asked. So for most workers, if you are laid off from your job, you can get regular state unemployment benefits. So the way to do that is just go online to the unemployment benefits office in your state. Just Google it, and you can get on unemployment insurance benefits. Those typically last 26 weeks. Some states are less, but it's typically 26 weeks. Then in March, when the pandemic really hit the labor market hard, Congress stood up a couple of extra programs just to respond to the pandemic. So one thing there is there's an additional weeks that people can get because people are getting stuck in unemployment for longer than usual. And so if you exhaust your regular state benefits, then people can get on to what is known as pandemic extended unemployment compensation, which is 13 additional weeks of benefits. And even after that, for eligible workers in some states, so it's pretty minimal, but there are some additional programs people can get on.
Now, I wonder how this differs from gig economy workers. We just had a chat about this in the last half hour. How's the process different?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. So in normal times, there is no unemployment insurance for independent contractors, which includes gig workers. So usually people who are gig workers, they're just out of luck if they find that demand for their services has dropped and they're not working. Congress, in that package that I mentioned from March, also stood up a program that gets unemployment insurance benefits to gig workers and other workers who fall through the cracks of our normal unemployment insurance system. It's called Pandemic Unemployment Assistance. It was modeled off of disaster unemployment assistance that gets put in place after, say, a hurricane or something. But this was clearly something that was needed for the disaster we face nationwide. And so now, if you're a gig worker or if you're out of work because of COVID, but you're not eligible for regular unemployment insurance benefits, you can apply for this other program, Pandemic Unemployment Assistance. And there are millions of people who are on that program right now. It's been a really successful way to get benefits to people who really need it in this recession.
Heidi, thank you for breaking that down because so many people need to know this information. And many of these benefits, they're going to expire on December 26th, the day after Christmas. Can you tell us just how critical is it for Congress to pass another stimulus?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It could not be more critical for Congress to act right now without, as you said, without Congress acting. Those federal programs, that pandemic unemployment assistance for gig workers, that pandemic extended unemployment compensation that gives people extra weeks of benefits, those things both expire on the day after Christmas. At that point, unless Congress acts ahead of time, millions of people will be thrown off of their benefits. So just to give you an idea of how much, by the end of the year, 13.5 million workers will have either exhausted their benefits or been thrown off them when benefits expire on December 16th or on December 26th. The cruelty of this is sort of mind-boggling. It's not like there's jobs for everyone to go to. There are millions more unemployed workers in the job market right now than job openings, which means if you cut off those benefits, millions of people will be left with absolutely no options. And the other thing that I think is also important in thinking about unemployment insurance benefits, when people think about unemployment insurance, the first thing they think about is this is a relief program. It gets money to people who otherwise would not be able to make it week to week until they can find another job, and that's absolutely true. But the other key thing about unemployment insurance benefits is it's really good stimulus for the economy because you're getting money in the hands of people who otherwise wouldn't have any, so they spend it. And that supports other jobs. So it's really smart policy. I hope Congress steps up.
Okay, good information. Last question quickly. Taking a quick step back, what type of job situation or economy that President-elect Joe Biden will inherit?
That's a grim one, I think. The economy right now is really, really weak. It's improving. Right, but it's still there. We're in a really deep hole. So right now, the official unemployment rate is 6.9%. That's higher than the unemployment rate ever gets in many recessions. And then when you factor in things like people having been misclassified or dropped out of the labor force because they couldn't work because they had to, say, take care of a kid who's a school-age kid whose school went online. If you factor in all of those things, the unemployment rate would be more like 11%. And that doesn't even count all the workers who have kept their jobs but have seen their hours and their pay cut, and so are actually taking a hit in that way. So things are really pretty dire for working people as a whole in this country, and the sort of kicker there is that job growth is slowing. We lost more than 22 million jobs in March and April. We added a ton of those jobs back over the summer as people who have been furloughed because of shutdowns in March and April got their jobs back as things reopened. But it didn't happen everywhere. There's still an enormous hole. And the thing is, that kind of job growth that we saw in March and April is really, or that we, from people getting rehired from having lost their jobs in March and April, is really playing itself out now. Things are really slowing down.
Okay, it's interesting just to see how that lag actually happens practically. Heidi Sherholtz, senior economist at the Economic Policy Institute. Thank you so much for that.
The biggest stories the moment they happen from around the globe. Subscribe to Bloomberg Quick Take now for insight in an instant.